Dave Grohl is getting in the van and he's going to be telling a lot of stories with a lot of other rock stars in an upcoming documentary. Rod had a creepy ass van and I had a creepy ass van back in the day. I wonder who had the creepier one. I think we're going to find out.
Jason continues to throw wood on this Rock is Dead story, comments that Gene Simmons made years ago. So we'll dissect that. Plus, we'll talk, is radio dead? No, it's not.
And I want you to think about your favorite guitarists of all time. April is International Guitar Month. Who is Rod and my top 5 favorite guitarists of all time? It's an interesting list. I think you're going to want to hear that. The Play Pants podcast. You can see the video version on our YouTube channel. Make sure you smash that subscribe button like you're green and you are the Incredible Hulk. And give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Play Pants Pod.
All right, welcome everybody to episode 3 of the Play Pants podcast. My name is Rod Ryan. He's Jason Ginty. We've got some pretty decent stuff lined up for you today, and I did want to say this, and I'm going to give you a little behind the door, the little man working the levers behind the curtain. Jason and I, before we did episode 1, I think we practiced because we had to kind of get a few legal things. We had to kind of get our ducks in a row, and there was a few other things. So we kind of like practiced. You'll never see these. They'll never see the light of day. But I think we may have done it like 4 weeks in a row. And there was never a problem on a Wednesday. There was never one problem. Every week, here we go. It's Wednesday. We're dialed in. For 3 weeks in a row, every Wednesday, something has happened for us. And I'm like, did we pick the right day to record this? Because it debuts Thursday morning, but we record Wednesday night.
Right.
Did we pick the right day, Jake?
Yeah, I think we did. I think it's fine. I mean, your life gets in the way, man. It's like the one night I had to scramble in here from my other job, and I'm like, holy shit, dude. I'm like, and you're like, it's okay. It's okay. And then you had the golf tournament last week.
Yeah, golf tournament.
I'm like, oh, you get to play golf, bitch, and we got this. This is a job now. You got to treat this like a job, bro.
You should have seen Jason's face when I said, look, I've got a golf tournament. And he's like, yeah, but you're going to be back for the podcast, right? I'm like, no. So we're going to have to record a day early. So just life, one thing after another. So we're still adjusting. Before we start running into it, I also wanted to say, man, thank you guys. The response has been great. It's been awesome. I'm getting some emails that are sent to me through the Buzz website, and I'm forwarding a few of these over to Jason. And I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, people they're reacting. They're digging the stories. They're digging the back and forth, the jib jab of what's happening here. So I appreciate everybody checking us out so early.
You know, Rod, it's what's kind of fun to see is the reactions because, you know, like we've talked before, I think in one of the other episodes that, you know, when you're on the radio, it's just you in a box, man. You're in a closet. You know, you've got a couple people on your show. I have nobody. So I'll say something and then there's nothing. Now you'll get tweets and Facebook comments from time to time, but we get a lot more comments at Play Pants Pod, by the way, on all the social media channels.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's funny. I think one of the biggest comments we've gotten repeated is watching two guys who we've listened to, you know, in different ways, like seeing you constantly talk it's radio, you know, we're on the radio. So you don't get to see how we move our hands all the time. And we're both like very energetic and bouncing around and looking at other shit in the studios. And the other thing that's been really, really interesting, and I don't think much about it, is people are kind of like weirded out every time we swear. They're weirded out. They get freaked. They're like, oh my God, is he on the radio? No, this is a podcast, man. Crank it up.
I saw my mother-in-law commented on the promo that you put together.
Oh, the swearing one. Oh my God, that's my favorite thing ever.
And I see my mother-in-law going, ha. I'm like, sweet. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. So like you said, all the social media, you guys are doing a great thing, and we appreciate you being here. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Jason and I, we got some things going back and forth, and I picked one of the topics today. And I know Jason's a big, huge Foo Fighter fan as well, like me. So Dave Grohl couldn't be busier right now. And he not only has dropped an album, and not only is he doing this and that and the other thing, he's got a documentary coming out. And I laughed immediately because it's kind of it's about being a young band, but the center of it seems to be about you got to get in the van. And you think about like young bands There's a van involved. It's usually disgusting, and it hauls around all of the equipment. And that's where a lot of bands start. So Grohl is really kind of like peeling back with some of these big bands, going to all the way up into and including Aerosmith. Which did you see? I like that American Pickers show. Did you see the episode where they found the Aerosmith van?
Yeah, there was like a tree growing through it or something, but they restored it all.
Okay, I never saw it. Was it good?
I don't remember much of it, but I remember they finished it. They do it how they do all the old cars. They chop them up, they restore it, they replace a lot of things, and they made it back. They found some old pictures of the van from back in the 70s when Aerosmith was actually using it as a touring van, and they replaced everything to the way it was. They call it contours restoration to what it was when Aerosmith had it. All the scratches and the dings, they put those in it as well when they painted it. I mean, they went all out. And then the episode at the end, they took it out to Vegas because that was a few years ago when Aerosmith had the Vegas residency.
Okay.
And they brought the whole band back there, and they're like, here's your van. And the looks on their faces, and they sat down and they told these stories. And Tyler's like, yeah, man. He's behind the steering wheel. He's like, oh my God, I can feel, I can smell, I can see where we're going. I can see the lines on the road. Like, it just brought back all these memories to these guys. And it looked like, it's Aerosmith. They don't get along, right? And you get the feeling that those guys all have separate lives, separate buses, separate dressing rooms.
All these years.
But they all of a sudden, they were all huddled around this van, and it looked like they turned into these little kids talking shop. So it was really cool.
And that's kind of exactly what Dave Grohl seems to be kind of like putting together for this. And it sounds like he's going to talk to some new bands as well. So it's not going to be just a walk down memory lane. It sounds like he's going to be talking to some new bands that are out there doing the van. Our friends, the Goo Goo Dolls, came into the studio about a year and a half ago. And Robbie and Johnny, Jason and I worked together in Buffalo, and we worked with Robbie for a short period of time. So we knew him pretty well. But they came in, and I got a chance to talk with them, and they were on the show. It was great. And I busted out a 1987, I still had it, Goo Goo Dolls Cram the Van Tour.
Oh, my God.
It's got a cartoon on it, and it's got them hanging out of the van. They did the van tour. So all bands have done this. The thing that made me kind of laugh is because separately, Jason and I had vans, and it's just the creepy kind of van that you would think. Now, I've talked about my van on the air before. Now, I was in a band. I was the drummer of the band, so I had the most shit to haul around. So my very first vehicle that I ever owned was a 1977 Dodge Tradesman van.
Oh, sweet ride.
Now that's what when we met, that's what I was driving.
Now you had a purple station wagon, dude.
That was my winter beater.
Yeah. Because up north, people in the South don't get a winter beater, you'd have a decent car all summer. You put that shit in the shed or in the garage, and then you'd buy like a $200 car, and you put these snow tires on it, and you would just beat the shit out of your winter beater. It was great.
And you say $200, but that usually was your limit. You spent $200 on a vehicle, and you drove it during the winter. So my van was put up. So my 1977 Dodge Tradesman van, captain's chairs in the front that swiveled all the way around. Nice. The big dog house here that, the engine was right there.
Yeah.
The whole back was gutted. This thing was done up. The van was from California.
Shag carpeting.
Shag carpeting. All right. It had a black fur ceiling. It had teak wood trim, like the trim of your house.
I love it.
It had teak trim, and it had a bed in the back.
Yeah.
No windows. The back windows had louvers on it. This thing was the creepiest. I mean, looking back at it now, it's super creepy. I love it. It's my first vehicle. But I didn't go out on some big major tour or anything.
Right.
But me and the guys, we were in that van, and we went everywhere to all of our gigs, all of our up to Canada. And the thing about, Jason and I grew up on the border of Canada. We would do concerts. We would do shows up in Canada. We'd play clubs. And they would rip my van apart. looking for drugs. It looked like a van carrying drugs from the TV show Chips. That's what my van looked like.
Yeah.
And the creepiest long-haired dudes are driving it. And you got 4 guys in there. We're driving to Canada. They tore it apart every time, and they never put anything back together. We had to put it all back together. Looking under the bed, we had to pull all the equipment out and everything. But that was my van experience, and it was the best, man. I loved it. I mean, you know, we drove far distances in that thing. We fought in that thing. I mean, we had full-on fights in there in the middle of winter storms and everything. So this Dave Grohl documentary looks great to me. You had a van, and you bought it shortly after we met.
Yeah, it was cool as shit. I do want to point out that the van thing, actually, a van got thanked. Remember this? When Green Day got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a few years ago, Mike Dirnt, the bass player, he thanked the Ford Econoline van. He goes, and without the Ford Econoline van,
nice
rock and roll, they wouldn't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He thanked the van in the speech, man. It was brilliant. I remember watching it live, and I went, holy shit, he just thanked the van. That's so badass. Yeah.
There's no way Grohl's not going to use that for the documentary.
Oh, it has to be in there. It has to be in there. What's interesting is that, yeah, I bought I think it was an 85 Chevy van, 305. It had the 4-speed on the floor. This thing was bad. And it's worse than yours. You want to know why? I'm telling you, dude, it was worse. I had the cool.
Because you weren't in a band.
I was just a skinny.
You were
dipshit.
basically just trying to get kids in there and giving them candy.
Oh, and it looked like it too, dude. It was solid black. Okay, solid black, not a window on it except for the windshield, the driver and passenger side, and the back. But the back had the louvers on it, so you couldn't see in it. Right?
Same.
Windows were tinted as black as you could. I mean, you couldn't see in them. You couldn't see out of them. Shiny black with the silver Krager rims.
Rims. I had Krager rims on mine. Very good.
Dude, I had 7 to 8 coat hangers holding the exhaust system up. What sucks is, like, it was beautiful. There wasn't a scratch on this paint, right? It was a gorgeous looking van. It just ran like shit, man. It was all look and nothing else, man. And I had to constantly take coat hangers out of my closet, and I was underneath it all the time, twisting up this rusted out. There was nothing left. It was loud as shit, right? I'd pull up in front of people's houses and everyone would be like, yeah, who's that guy?
But I had to kind of sell it to my mom. My dad was cool about it. My dad and I actually went to go look at a Hearst, and my mom said, no, I'm living at home at the time.
Right.
She's like, you're not parking a Hearst here. My dad and I went to go look at a Hearst, and he was kind of down for it. He was, he okayed it. Then he said the old, ask your mom. So my mom said, you're not parking a Hearst here at the house because I'm living at home. Now that would have been bad. How cool would that have been, hauling around all the equipment?
And smart. It's like a cooler looking station wagon, and you don't have to pick shit up as high. You know what I mean? It hurts to be cool.
Things never gone over 45 miles an hour. It had low mileage. So my mom, everything with my mom, I gave her as little information as she needed, just to kind of let her know that, I was out there and I'm looking for a vehicle, whatever. So my dad, again, sees this van, signs off on it. It's got 3 on the tree. Okay.
Oh, so cool.
I don't even know how to drive any of that stuff. So I couldn't even drive it. I bring the van home. We buy it. My mom kind of knows I'm buying a van now. She's not sure, but okay, I think he's bringing a van home. So my dad has to drive it because I can't even drive the 3 on the steering column. There was an H pattern of reversed first, second, and third, and it was in an cool. H.
So cool.
So the thing, my dad pulls it up in the driveway. My mom comes out. She sees the van. I'm like, okay, it's kind of cool looking, on the outside. Opens the side doors and sees a bed in there.
Get down.
My mom. My mom thinks that she didn't swear when we were younger. My mom said, fuck no. When she opened up the van and she saw it's a bed with the guy gave me the, probably all jizz stained up blankets and everything, the custom pillows and everything. He gave me everything. All right. It was all there. My mom looked at that thing and she's like, no way. And then starts yelling at my dad.
Yep, absolutely.
How did you let him buy this?
Yep, exactly.
So my dad took the hit. And then basically he said, listen, you said you didn't want the hearse parked in the driveway. So we went with this. He's got to carry around the drums, blah, blah, blah. So like my dad really did me a solid there. I mean, that was huge. I needed a van. You just bought a van.
It looked so freaking cool.
You didn't need a van.
I had a car and I was like, okay,
cool, I loved it.
I was sick of it. I was like, okay. And so I get the van, right? So, anytime, and I'm young, I'm out. I got dates occasionally, I get dates, and you show up at somebody's house to pick them up at their house, and the old man comes out, arms crossed, and just looking at you, and I'm like, shit, I bought the wrong kind of vehicle. Go out one time, right? Kind of a first meeting date with this chick, right? Go out. I have too much to drink, of course. So I'm like, hey, can you drive home? She's like, yeah, I totally drive home. Gets in the car. I get in the passenger seat, right? And I don't let people drive my cars. I'm a bit of a dick that way, right? I'm like, no. I spend too much effort making them look good and sort of sound good and all that good shit. She gets in the car, right? She goes to turn the key and doesn't start. I'm like, what do you mean it won't start? She's like, it won't start. I go, you got to push in the clutch. She goes, the what?
Oh, no,
I'm hammered.
She's not driving.
I can't drive. I go, look, I'll talk you through it. And when you're hammered, dude, you think you've got this on lock, right? I go push in the clutch. I'm teaching someone how to drive a van. The clutch is hard to push down. The shifter is huge, like a bus, right? We start hucking and bucking up and down on the road. I go, you know what? Let's just take a cab. So yeah, that's that didn't work out with the van very well. What's interesting about from the musical side of it, I think what happens is, and you could speak better to this because I was never in a band, but you're having fist fights in that van. You're stuck in that close quarters. You're stuck, hour or two ride to places. Sometimes you're stuck getting to know these guys. You practice, you write songs, you do all that shit together, right? But it creates more of that. What makes that guy tick? You get to learn each other's, quirks and weirdness. Yeah. I think a lot of that comes out on stage and in your music because you can look at each other and you know what that guy's thinking, you know what that guy's saying. You get that. It's almost like, with a morning show, you hang out with these people, you drink some beers, you hang out, you do stuff, you get to learn what makes them tick. And it actually ultimately should make your show or your band better a lot of times.
I agree 100%. So Dave Grohl, What Drives Us is the name of the documentary, and we will put the trailer up on the Playpants Facebook page, and we'll tweet it out as well. The trailer, everything that Dave Grohl has done, it's his third documentary, which is wild. This is his third one. The other two have been great. Sound City was second to none, but the one from the studio, the
Sonic Highways is still my favorite.
Sonic Highways. That's what I mean.
He did a better job explaining New Orleans music to people than I think anyone's ever done. It's not easy to figure out and condense what makes New Orleans music so influential. He did such a great job. And I live here. I was like, holy shit, this is the first time I really understood it. And it took Dave Grohl to explain it to me. Sonic Highways is great.
One final thing about the documentary, which I don't know if you saw this. I kind of sent you the press release on it. It's going to be on something called Coda. Now, it's a division of Amazon Prime.
Right.
We might have to pay for this.
Come on.
It's getting weird out there. I know. If I'm hearing correctly, Coda might be a nod to Zeppelin.
Right.
And there may be all of this music stuff coming on a division of Amazon Prime. Most of you probably are already on Amazon Prime, and I love it. It's great. You know what I mean? You got all the movies and you're streaming all the stuff. This might be an upcharge.
It probably will be.
It may be. So again, I'm not exactly sure. Friday, April 30th, it's going to be available. The Coda collection and elsewhere through Amazon Prime Video. It'll be interesting to see if they try to launch a new platform to bilk us out of more money and use this. Because I don't know that I pay for another service to watch this documentary, to be honest with you.
Right. But that's what they're going to end up doing. But, if you're going to hyper focus all these little channels and you get good documentaries and you start diving into everybody, man, I'm in because I'm a fan of all that stuff. Rod, we got to talk about our sponsor, Lucky's Pub West, I-10 and Barker Cypress. Man, I'm telling you what, Lucky's Pub West, they got the Rockets games, Astros baseball. Baseball season just getting going. You got to check out the games. the Astro games over at Lucky's Pub West on over 40 TVs. The food, delicious. The best pizza on the best side. Killer wings, burgers. And I'll be damned if I didn't get another comment about those Philly cheesesteak egg rolls.
Yeah.
Those things are like, they're becoming legendary, man. Anyway, they're doing crawfish on the weekends. Check out the Facebook page for details. There's always an ice cold beer at a fair price. What else are you going to use to wash down those famous Philly cheesesteak egg rolls, right? Lucky's Pub West, I-10 at Barker, Cypress.
Jason, you sent me something that you said that this rock is dead. That thing that Gene Simmons said years ago. This was something that Jason had sent me during the week. He said, dude, it ain't over with yet. I thought for sure this was going to be a done conversation. I mean, it's been 3 or 4 different levels now coming out of Gene Simmons' comments.
You realize the rock is dead thing has been happening since the 70s, right? Every couple of years, the rock critics all get around and go, okay, we need some new articles. So let's proclaim rock dead, because it all goes in cycles, right? You go for a lull where music's just kind of like, man, nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden, bam, hair metal, nothing's happening. And bam, grunge. And then nothing's happening. And then, whatever. So Gene Simmons has gone on and on and on saying rock is basically dead. He says these bands can't survive because the model's been changed. You're not selling albums, and a lot of bands aren't selling out arenas. So they can't make financial money. They can't make money off of being a rock band anymore. It's not getting played on the radio anymore that much. It's hard for them to go. So he's basically proclaiming rock is dead. Now, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister fame, who's a pretty decent follow, man. He gets talking music and stuff, especially the hair metal stuff. And he trumpets the hair metal pretty good, obviously. He got into it about like, no, rock is not dead. There's a million great bands out there. They just don't get exposure. Well, I think they're both saying the same thing, because Gene said they're not getting exposure. There's a million great rock bands out there. You have to work. You got to dig to find them. There's great rock bands out there. I know they're out there. Are you playing any new, real, traditional rock bands on the buzz? I mean,
there's a couple of things. Okay, so the new Rise Against has come out.
Sure,
right? It's great. We are banging the shit out of a new Offspring song.
Right.
So Offspring's a rock band, right?
Punk rock, sure, yeah. So is Rise Against, but those bands aren't new. They've been around for 15. Well, Offspring's been around for 30 years.
The guy that made the comment that everyone is getting their panties in a bunch, up to and including Dave Grohl, said, "Hey, we're doing some stuff over here." Which Dave Grohl is carrying that torch. Gene Simmons is 71 years old. Hang on, let that sink in. I had to look it up. Gene Simmons is 71. Something happens to people when they hit a certain age where they just start thinking that people aren't working as hard as they did. They're not putting in the effort that they did. There's no difference between guys that are swinging a hammer, guys that are making music. Every generation thinks the one beneath them are lazy and, don't work as hard as them. I mean, the World War II guys thought the Vietnam guys were pussies. It never stops. So you have somebody, and you know how I feel about Kiss. He's 71 years old. He says rock is dead because you're not doing it the same way that you did it.
Right.
Rock is not dead. It's not the most popular music anymore. It's not. When grunge ruled the world, grunge was the most popular music. When MTV launched, there was a new wave thing happening, but boy, they really embraced rock bands and they made good videos. So for a while, that hair stuff was the most popular music. It was popular music, even though there was other things happening. Rock is not the most popular music right now. Rap is. Rap, hip hop, pop music is the most popular music.
Right. So
there's going to be another shift. Okay. Tessa was talking this week on the air that skinny jeans are out and wide jeans are in. There's a new jean cycle coming in. It's just not the most popular thing that people are talking about. Everyone gets upset because you watch the Grammys. There's no rock represented there. You look at album sales and there's just not a lot of rock records selling, but people are starving for concerts, man. They're starving for concerts. There's still a ton of rock fans out there. My state, you work at a classic rock station.
Right.
I work at what is an alternative rock station. And I get it. People want to light you up when you play something brand new because 21 Pilots just came out with something. I'm at a rock alternative station. Okay. We have to play that. And guess what? Just don't assume that everybody hates it. They don't. The rock star looks different now. The rock star looks like today's rock star looks like Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah, it's the guys from 21 Pilots.
Machine Gun Kelly's a rock star.
Absolutely.
Okay? I don't care if you like him or not. That last album was awesome. He's a rock star. He's not Led Zeppelin rock star. He's today's rock star.
There's not any more David Lee Roth. There's no more Jim Morrison's, man. And that see, but when someone calls your station, Rod, okay, and I think we can fix this pretty quick. When someone calls and goes, oh, what the hell with 21 Pilots or Imagine Dragons? Ask them how old they are. Ask them how old they are. That's all you got to do. And I guarantee they're over 35 when they call them bitch.
You start aging out. You start aging out on that stuff.
Here's how it works. Okay. Look, I know people who loved Elvis and they loved the Beatles. Guess what? They hated Led Zeppelin because they got aged out, right? People who loved Led Zeppelin and Sabbath when it was new. Now, I'm not talking about looking back. I'm talking growing up, 16 years old, and that was the new shit. I'm pretty sure they weren't real psyched when Judas Priest and Van Halen came out, okay? And then when you had those guys, then the hair metal comes out. And you're an age, right? You're in that 15, your musical tastes are formed between like 14 and 22. Okay. That's your wheelhouse for forming your musical tastes. Okay. Now some people will get older and still like new music, but what happens is by the time you're 22, guess what? You're kind of getting into the real world. It means you're working. You ain't got time to sit around and jerk off to radio stations or music, right? Then you're going to get kids and your life becomes all consuming of just surviving, having a job, wife, kids, and all that shit. You know what you're not doing? Sitting around your house talking about the new freaking 21 Pilots album because you're just not. And what's happening is because life is happening between 14 and age 22, all the cool shit, right? You're young, you're full of piss and vinegar, you're banging whores and you're doing all these things. You're creating memories with all this music on in the background. And guess what? Every time you hear that shit for the rest of your life, that's going to bring back those kick-ass memories. It's triggering an emotion. So when you see those memes on Facebook, and you see them almost every day, I may be old, but I saw the good bands. No, you didn't. You saw the bands that were popular in your time, man.
Yes.
There's still great bands out there today. I guarantee you, the second we're allowed to go see concerts, go see a band you don't know. And I'm telling you, they're probably going to light it up. There's so many great freaking bands out there right now. They just don't get the exposure because you know how hard it is to get on a radio station as a band nowadays. It's virtually impossible. Okay. Especially if you got a guitar, I think they took all the fuzz away from all the guitars is what happened in the last 10 years because it just doesn't exist. You don't hear it on mainstream shit. You just don't hear it. It's so hard for rock bands right now. And that's a shame because I'm a give me four dudes, give me the fuzz, give me that swagger, give me that guy with the booze and all the problems and the tats, right? And that isn't going to happen again, I don't think. It's just not going to happen. I think there's a lot of things have been learned. You know, Machine Gun Kelly, he's a badass. He's a rock star. You know,
he's a rock. That's today's rock star.
It's a different rock star. The styles change. You know, everything evolved from something else. Think about it, right? You had, Led Zeppelin came out, Sabbath, that whole sound right there in 69, 70, 71. All those guys, thick, heavy, just awesome guitars, right? And then, a few years later, what happened? You had the Van Halens and you had all that shit, the AC/DCs that all kind of got out of the Led Zeppelin stuff. They formed those bands in the late 70s. And then, of course, out of those bands, you were born into the hair metal in the late 80s. And it just keeps going. It's all a derivative of something else.
And don't assume what you're talking about, that when that baton was, hi, Voodoo. My dog just wanted to come in on the podcast.
I'm the smartest one in the room right now.
Don't assume that you're talking about these, what seem to be pretty smooth transitions. Who would have a problem going from Zeppelin to, Zeppelin into, AC/DC and Van Halen, and then into like Rat and Quiet Riot? People had a problem with it. You think it was a smooth transition, but it wasn't.
No.
Jason and I, before we were at the alternative radio station in Buffalo, when we talked about, how we got our first jobs, that was our wheelhouse. We were ready to rock because we were ready to go, because that was our music. Alternative was turning the corner and stations were flipping formats from rock formats to alternative. The guys that worked at the station before they flipped format, they weren't digging Weezer. Yet they were being forced to play it. Nirvana and Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, that stuff kind of weaved in there pretty well. I remember the afternoon drive guy, Meltdown, I love you. I remember him having to play Weezer on the Fox and just was not happy about it. Weezer, and of course it was Buddy Holly.
but that song had guitars in it. It was fuzz. It still was a rock song.
And you would think that there was an easy transition there. Nothing could be further from the truth. It was not an easy transition, not at all.
And I want to make it very clear that when I say like Led Zeppelin into Van Halen into the hair metal, looking back on it from this point today, absolutely, it totally makes sense. Yeah, I love all that shit, but you got to put yourself in the context of being like 17 years old when you heard Led Zeppelin, and then years later, you're like, wait, what is this hair metal shit? This is like a complete, total watering down of what Led Zeppelin did. When you look at the hair metal, you're like, wait a minute, Bret Michaels is basically like a watered down Robert Plant. And I mean, way watered down. You think about that. So you're not going to get anyone who loved those bands then are like, oh, these guys are pussies. It's not for me. So the rock is dead thing. No, it just evolves. It's not your style of rock and roll. Machine Gun Kelly has all the attitude of rock. He's got the tats. He's got the guitar. Sure, he's dressing in pink, and isn't he banging Megan Fox right now?
Banging Megan Fox. So he's got like the hottest chick out there. He's got the whole thing. I mean, that's a rock star.
Rock star. It's a rock star.
And he's plugged himself in everywhere, and he's got Travis Barker producing him from Blink-182,
sure,
who Blink is still very viable. It's there. It's out there. It's not out there as much as we as rock fans would want it to be.
Right.
But it's still there.
It's totally there.
And it goes hand in hand. I told you, I said I had a story to share with you. I'm at a party this weekend. Don't worry, not exactly a kegger or a rager, a 2-year-old party.
Sweet.
But I'm chatting, it's the old, what do you do for a living type of deal. And, the parents of the hosts. And, I said, I work at a radio station, and, you don't know what people's reactions are going to be, but, a few people, the ears pick up like, oh, radio station. Really, really, really. And they're asking, well, is it a good business to be in? Radio?
Right.
You're thinking, is it like the newspapers? Everybody knows newspapers are drying up. You don't really see newspapers and, unless you're in real big cities now. And I said, okay, well, let me ask you, let me get a little feeling. What do you guys do? What do you guys do? How do you use different things? I go, do you ever listen to a podcast before? Yeah, we listen to podcasts. I said, that's radio. That's radio. Okay. You have a phone. You guys have a phone? They're like, yeah. I said, the apps on that phone? They're like, yeah. I go, that's radio. Radio is not Ralphie from A Christmas Story sitting down and his favorite radio program is coming on, and he's sitting next to this big, huge piece of furniture and listening to, the Lone Ranger.
Right.
That used to be radio. And even growing up, the experience was different for you and I. We'd sit around, and we already talked about recording songs off the radio and walking around with the boom box and all of that. How you would traditionally think of radio. But websites, and your company's doing the same thing, what iHeart already has done for years. You're morphing into this media company, right, and you're not just a radio station anymore, podcasts. And you look at your phone, and for me, it's the iHeart Radio app, and all these radio stations are right there. All these podcasts are right there. That's radio.
We're doing it. We've expanded our reach. We're radio and we're doing a podcast. Same
Correct.
thing. Same damn thing.
Now, I don't know if I'm getting off on a bit of a tangent here, but one guy's saying rock is dead. And then I kind of got that feeling thinking that, well, radio kind of must be, on its way out, right? Everything was going to kill radio. Okay.
TV was supposed to kill it.
TV was supposed to kill radio.
In the 50s.
The VCR was supposed to kill radio. The DVD was supposed to kill radio. I remember as late as 2003, iPods were just coming out. And I'm like, let's give away iPods, man. This would be cool. And the program director's like, no, you idiot. That's going to put us out of business. We're not giving away something that's going to ultimately hurt us here.
Right.
So the iPod, the MP3, everything was going to kill us. Streaming was going to kill us. YouTube was going to kill us. Nothing has killed radio. I did, of course, bring in all kinds of numbers and everything. I'll just say that the reach of radio itself, the one number that I want to share with you, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but Spotify guy is there. Okay. Right. Spotify guy.
Oh yeah.
Nobody listens to the radio anymore.
XM was supposed to kill radio too. There's those guys. Oh, satellite radio, man. No one listens to real radio. No one listens to rest radio anymore.
Audience shares, Pandora, Spotify, nearly equal AM/FM radio. Here's the deal. Not even close. Not even close. Okay. AM/FM radio is 21 times larger than Pandora. Did you hear me?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, no, I got Pandora playing all the time. Okay. It's 10 times more popular and more populated, meaning 10 times the people are listening to AM/FM radio than Spotify.
Yep.
So you just kind of assume that, well, everybody must be doing this. Radio's not dead.
Not even close.
It's what Jason does for a living. It's what I do for a living. Okay. This isn't paying the house note yet. But right. The radio is still outrageously popular.
Dude, 90. Wait, you got stats? You think I didn't come with stats? I got stats, bro. I got stats. 93% of Americans still punch up the regular old radio at some point during their day. 93% of Americans are still turning on the radio.
Take that, Spotify guy.
It's dead. So here's what's interesting about that. Now, is there a lot of shitty radio stations out there in the world? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there's some bad. Dude, how hard is it for you to actually listen to the radio at all without ripping every little thing a new asshole?
It's a little different. I mean,
it's hard for us.
Anybody that's ever worked in radio, it's you're a little bit more critical of everything that you're hearing. And so I'm driving in the car with my wife, and she knows we've been together long enough. But if you've ever had this happen to you, radio's playing, song is playing, you're jamming out, and then somebody comes on and starts talking, and my wife reaches over and hits the button for something else. I'm like, did you just turn off a person talking on the radio? What I do for a living, you just showed me what you feel about somebody talking on the radio?
Why don't you just stab me?
Yeah.
Stab me in the fucking
So
yeah.
It's tough to listen to the radio, but I do, and I do, and I try to, keep listening to a little bit of everything. But I it's not that I don't listen to Pandora or Spotify. Of course, iHeart, XM. It's great. It's awesome, but it hasn't destroyed radio. And I know this whole thing started out with Gene Simmons and his rock is dead, but shit's not dying. It's
splintered.
not.
It's splintered. In fact, you brought
different.
it up.
It's just different.
There's more options. There's more and
Yes.
more options. You should be thrilled about that, right? There's so many different options. Look at this. We're doing a podcast. We didn't ever think this was going to happen. When you left for Houston 18 years ago, I'm like, well, that's that. I didn't figure we'd ever get a chance to work together. And here we are sitting here on Wednesday nights working together, doing sort of a podcast radio thing. And it's badass because it's opened up thousands of different ideas. I've rethought everything, man. Like this has just been awesome. We're only 3 into this thing, and I'm already like thinking of 90 things every time. So, and you brought it up, the Dave Grohl documentary is going to be on a thing called Coda, which I guess we're both assuming is going to be part of Amazon. It's just everything is going to be so splintered. Think about when cable first came out back in the 80s and 90s, right? You had HBO, you had Skinamax, you had MTV, right? And you kind of only had a few channels. And then you have this scrambled porn, remember? And you're like, oh, come on. Oh, I saw a titty. You know what I mean? And that's what you had. And then you had like 1,000 cable channels, right?
Yeah.
And now all those cable channels are now going to morph into all of these other places, all the different Netflix and the
paid
Amazon
platforms.
And then it's just moving. It's going from cassette to CD, man. That's what we're doing with everything. We're not doing anything new. We're just spreading it around on new mediums.
I want to pause for one of our sponsors here, New Orleans. I think everybody knows it's a pretty amazing city. It's one that's very near and dear to my heart. My good friend Jason lives there. So unique history along with, party balls. Go to New Orleans and party balls, okay? Yeah. But take some time and learn a little bit about the place that you're at, and you can still party while doing it, all right? So if you don't know, there was a time when real pirates roamed around the streets of the French Quarter. And you can hear these incredible tales of smuggling and sword fights and cannons and drinking and then more drinking and then more drinking. You can follow along with Pirates of the Quarter. And it's a walking tour. There's some pub crawls. This is awesome. All right. And you're still partying. You're still out and about, and do it before it gets too hot, man. So it's the most unique walking tour in the French Quarter. It's fun. You're going to learn a ton. You're not going to be quizzed. You're just going to absorb this stuff. And it's just because it's so cool to hear about the rock stars of the day were pirates. Okay. Those were the rock stars back in the day, the trading and the port and everything else. So discover the pirate history of New Orleans, piratesofthequarter.com, links on the Play Pants podcast page and our YouTube page. And if you're planning a trip to New Orleans, you'd be silly not to take this walking tour, man, because you'll learn a lot. You'll just have an awesome time, and it'll enhance your trip.
Rod, April's a big month. It's a big month. You want to know why it's a big month? You want to know why? Because it's international. Oh, shit. Did you get something?
Not yet.
Wait, what day is it? If you don't know. Holy
5 years. Why would you say that? What if I didn't know?
Dude, I'll cut this part out. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
What an asshole. What if I didn't know my anniversary and you asked me during a podcast?
Dude, right now you're
the whole world.
You're buying time. You're buying time. You're thinking. You're trying. Okay, there you go.
April 30th. It's on the inside of my ring. I had it etched on my ring just in case. It was a great life hack back in the day. Somebody taught me that.
On the outside of the ring. Anyway, besides your wonderful, loving anniversary, it is also International Guitar Month. So I thought, since we love to do top 5 lists, Rod, let's go through your favorite and my favorite guitarists. This isn't saying they're the best of all time. Let's not go down those roads. It's your personal favorite guitarists, my personal favorite guitarists.
Just thank you for sending it in that verbiage, okay? Because I probably would have kicked it back to you if you would have said something to me, dude, the greatest guitar players of all time. Let's do that list. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I don't need it. I don't need that in my life.
And I don't
I don't have Jimi Hendrix on my list because you said I'm allowed to give you my favorite guitar players.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that Jimmy's not the best, but he's not my top 5 favorite guitar players. So I don't have Jimmy Page on my list. I don't have Eric Clapton on my list. I don't know if I'm freaking you out already, but I don't.
No. I think anytime we do these lists, it shouldn't, let Rolling Stone magazine and all those guys do all their dumb, who's the greatest of all time. I think it has to come from a personal standpoint. So you can go, oh yeah, well, I like those same guys too. Or this is where the listener or viewer, well, by the way, we do this podcast. It's on our YouTube channel as well. Look at Play Pants podcast on YouTube.
Smash that subscribe.
Hit that thing.
Smash the subscribe button.
Like an ex-girlfriend's windshield on her car. Okay, that's violent. Never mind. What are your top five? Your top five favorite guitarists of all time, Rod?
As always, these things are very difficult. So I'm sorry. No Hendrix, no Clapton, no Page, no Beck.
But that's okay.
No Townsend.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's for the other. That's for the Rolling Stone magazines and the Pitchfork and shit, man. It's yours.
My
yours.
Favorite guitar players in at number 5, Slash.
Oh, how do you not? How do you not?
All right. Love the man. I love his solo stuff, man. He went out there and got Miles Kennedy, who has one of the most wicked rock voices out there. Somebody go tell Miles. Nobody told Miles Kennedy rock was dead. That dude can wail. So the Conspirators and some of that Slash solo stuff, I know everybody's going to know him from Guns N' Roses, but man, go check out the stuff that he's doing with Miles.
I saw Miles Kennedy one time and with Slash, right? Those Conspirators, right? And I took the wife and we're like, this is awesome. And she's like, Miles Kennedy can sing his balls off. But my wife is like, he's freaking me out. I go, why? She goes, because every time he like, there's a solo, all he does is he would turn around to the drum riser behind him on stage and he would squirt hand sanitizer in his hands.
Really?
My wife's like, yeah. And she goes, that is killing the rock star image, man. You don't have to smoke and drink.
I never saw him do that before. I've seen him live a couple of times. I've seen Alter Bridge too.
Yes,
I don't remember ever seeing that.
Nicest guy in the world too, man. But it ruined the concert for me. I just kept watching him squirt hand sanitizer in his hands.
You know what? And I'll say this about Miles. He's because we're talking guitar, he's a killer guitar player.
Really?
He's really, really good. All right. So when you got him and Tremonti in the same band, Tremonti didn't make my list, but man, I'm thinking, damn it.
I like him too, actually.
Okay. Angus Young, AC/DC. I didn't plan to wear this, but AC/DC, sure. Angus Young, favorite guitar player because of the power. I don't know where he sits on a greatest of all time list, but between him and Jimmy Page, the riff and just the power of the riff. And he's so damn entertaining on stage. And AC/DC still, Hal and I went a couple of years ago, went to go see them on the stadium tour. And you never felt like you were ripped off from the olden days. You know, I didn't see AC/DC in the early 80s. I didn't see AC/DC. I clearly didn't see him with Bon Scott either. I was too young. But Angus Young still just brings it live. He's so fun to watch and regarded as one of the greats. In at number 4. Number 3, I saw him live. I did see him live. Stevie Ray Vaughan.
No way.
Yes. I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan at Darien Lake outside of Buffalo. And there's a whole crazy long story to it, but I did see Stevie Ray Vaughan perform live. And I think that I liked him before, and seeing him live and then having him pass, I cherished the fact that I saw him perform. And I remember the concert. It was kind of before I was, drinking a lot at concerts, because I was younger when I saw him. He was amazing, dude. He was amazing. And I do think that him and Jimi Hendrix, when you talk about that guitar being a part of their body and almost like a third arm, he was so fluid with the guitar. And all you got to do is go watch some of that legendary stuff from Austin City Limits. And you just never saw anybody. Maybe Jimmy was the only other guy that did that. Not even, well, I got other guys. Tom Morello in at number 2.
Yeah.
My number 2 favorite guitar player. You and I have met Tom before. I've come in contact with him a bunch of times, and I've gotten the chance to talk to him and interview him. And he's a great guy. He's awesome. He's a rock fan. Right. You just want to sit around and talk with him. But I put Tom Morello in at number 2, and I put Eddie Van Halen in at number 1. And I freaked out because I didn't have Ace Frehley on my list. That was the toughest one for me. Not putting Ace Frehley on my list killed me, because as a little kid, he was everything. He was everything to me, and he didn't. So that's the guy that just didn't make the cut. Shout out Dave Navarro, Randy Rhoads, Tony Iommi. I'm a big Sabbath fan. And you know who else I just threw out there? John Frusciante. Chili Peppers never been my favorite band, but that son of a bitch is so talented. He's unbelievable. And I just gave you about 30 guitar players on my top 5.
It's 5, dude. It's 5.
Tough.
Can we keep, yeah. You know what's funny though is John Frusciante. I never huge Chili Peppers fan. Seen him I saw him at Jazz Fest a few years ago, and that was mind blowing. They were so great.
Live, they're great. They're top notch.
Okay, dig up on YouTube once you finish watching this. Some Frusciante, and I don't remember this when I saw him live, but he'll bust out occasionally. I don't know if he does it every time they played live. He busts out like Bee Gees tunes for a little, like 45 seconds. He'll do like Staying Alive or one of these songs, and he's singing it in the falsetto. I didn't know that happened. Talented.
Dude, he is
real.
He's a musician's musician. He's been to hell and back.
Yeah.
You know, he's had to deal with issues. He's gone down. He's dropped down to 80 pounds before. You know, he's dropped out of the Chili Peppers. Then he's come back to the Peppers. That guy is one of the most talented guitar players ever. And you're right. Seeing him live and seeing the Chili Peppers live, you know, I'm not going to put on a Chili Pepper CD or, you know, on my playlist or whatever, but seeing them live, it's next level. All right. I'm curious because I want to see how much carryover we have on our top 5 lists.
You know, I
favorite guitar players.
My favorite, like who I can be like, yeah, I can listen to that shit all day long. And seeing some of these guys live has definitely helped to change my perspective on guitar players. Yes, there's no Jimmy Page on my thing. I love Jimmy Page. I love all that shit. There's no shredders really on my list either, man. Number 5, and this is gonna be like what? Robbie Krieger of the Doors. Okay, you gotta think about this. But next time you got a Doors album on, put the headphones in. Okay, because the way it was produced, it was on the 2 tracks or the 4 tracks, so it's right and left, and there's a lot going on that Robbie's doing underneath all that shit. You know, everyone focuses on is you hear the goofy keyboard and you hear Morrison, right? Robbie Krieger is playing. He was playing like beer bottles up and down the neck back in the mid '60s on some of those songs. I mean, he's got some interesting shit going on in those songs. If you're a guitar fan, you hear a lot of plucking and weird shit, and you know, they didn't have a bass player, so. You know, Ray Manzarek gets all the credit for, he played the bass on the keyboard. Robbie's in there too, muddling around, trying to throw some bass sound in there as well to kind of fill out the band when they played live. So Robbie Krieger.
You guys had interesting shit growing out of your head. You had a Robbie Krieger thing happening with your hair.
I mean, it's just shitty
back
hair,
in the
dude.
day. Back in the day.
Yeah, it was fuzz.
Kind of had an afro, and I'm thinking, I'm seeing the connection with you and Robbie Krieger.
Yeah, it's it was bad, and I'm glad it's
you guys
gone.
both had white manfros.
Manfros, yeah, we're bad hair.
Okay, this is interesting. All right, that's an interesting 5.
Yeah, number 4, Jack White. Now, I wasn't always a Jack White fan, and I like the simplicity of his stuff. He's got great riffs. I love how it's just loud as shit. And there was a documentary, I think it was called "It Might Get Loud," with him and The Edge and Jimmy Page.
It's a great doc.
Somebody else. Anyway, you got to go to his Tennessee farm and see how he did this shit. And I became like a fan when I saw that. And then all you have to do to become a Jack White fan, see him live, first of all. Second of all, go dig up last year's Saturday Night Live performance when he did a little tribute to Eddie Van Halen. He did, you know, the 2 different songs early and then late in the show. Saturday Night Live performance, one of my favorite of all time. That put it over the edge for me with Jack White. Here's a really bizarre, deep cut, weird one, and you'll know why when I tell you. A guy named Jeff Martin. He's in this Canadian band called the Tea Party, right?
Yep.
Nobody knows who the fuck I'm talking about.
Dig him up. Like Jason's favorite band. He loves these guys.
Okay, so this guy, he grew up as a kid, loved world music, loved the sitar sound and all this shit. So he grew up outside of Windsor, Ontario, you know, the Rust Belt. He didn't have no damn money, and he's a little bit older than we are. So he learns to play guitar and starts tuning it and learning how to play it to get the sounds of a sitar out of his own guitar. So out of necessity, he figured out how to play those sounds. And I think that's actually on their first album. And then he went on to, you know, become fairly successful Canadian wise anyway. And his playing is crazy. And if you're a big fan of just world instruments with a rock edge to it, definitely check out the band called the Tea Party. Slash in at number 2 because, well, I wrote my note down. It's fucking Slash. The first time I saw Guns N' Roses, I was excited to see the band, but when I saw Slash, I couldn't take my eyes off him because I've never seen in a rock concert somebody up and down that guitar literally nonstop for the entire 2.5 hours. Like he never stops. You know, he's not strumming very often. I mean, he's just always moving. And I met him one time, and his grip, He could have crushed a bowling ball. His grip is unbelievable. And then Eddie Van Halen, number one. How do you not? How do you not? You know, so
You can't not.
you know, if someone's mad that we on our personal top 5 guitarists didn't pick Clapton or anything like that, and I've seen Clapton and a lot of these other artists, and I love them all, but I play a lot of them on the radio every day, so I think I kind of get burnout a little bit on some of the. I mean, I love Hendrix. You really sit down and listen to like Crosstown Traffic and some of the deeper cuts. Holy shit, it's unbelievable.
Here's what happens to me when I'm listening to Jimi Hendrix. I start getting lost in the drums, man. Like Mitch Mitchell and stuff. I start getting lost because the drums are so fucking great on some of that stuff. They're amazing. He always had killer drummers. And of course, it's the greatest guitar player of all time. But man, his rhythm section was so sick and so amazing. Different than, they were just so in front for me for being such this guitar player, because it's a little different. Because Stevie Ray Vaughan, I felt Double Trouble sat back a little bit. They're good. They're amazing. They're amazing. And that's his 2 guys that, you know, played. It was Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble. So the rhythm section, I thought they were more in the pocket. The stuff that was going on top of Jimi Hendrix, those drums and everything, it's mind-blowing. It really is. And that's when I listen to Hendrix, I don't always just like get the guitar. I go down the drum rabbit hole and I start freaking out how great it is. All of it just together was just a musical masterpiece for sure.
Plus those 3 pieces, they had to make so much noise. I remember, you know, different bands, you watch the interviews or the documentaries, like Eddie Van Halen, not to talk about him some more, but you know, he said that him and Alex, you know, they were just him, Alex, and then Michael Anthony. You got a lot of space to fill as 3 guys. You got a lot of space to fill. So they just played loud. They played everything they could play. And I think, you know, and that's another topic for another time, but like these great guitarists probably got covered up. Like no one who talks about the drummer with Jimi Hendrix ever, other than like drummer nerds, really, you know what I mean? But they get buried into the, you know, you don't, most people couldn't even name who the hell played with Jimi Hendrix. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, obviously it was him and it was his flash and it was the way he dressed and all that shit. But these guys were great with these other guys, you know?
Correct. I mean, you know, Clapton is going to be on every list for, you know, great guitar players.
Right.
But when you look at that short time that he was in Cream, I can't, I'm listening to Ginger Baker.
Who's great.
It was that style of playing. It was the same thing that Mitch Mitchell was doing. It's the same thing. It was just that they were filling so much space on their drums. You know, Keith Moon did it. It was a different style of drumming that I can't help it. I'm supposed to be listening to Clapton in Cream, right? But all I'm listening to is Ginger Baker. That's it. That's all I hear. When I hear Cream, all I hear is Ginger Baker. That happens to me, and I know I'm going to get killed for this. That happens to me when I listen to Jimi Hendrix. It really does.
Well, you come from
the rhythm section is just ridiculous.
You come from a long drumming background. So I was going to ask you this, you know, about drumming and stuff. Think about Keith Moon and Ginger Baker and all these guys. They learned, you know, their influence wasn't rock and roll. Their influence was jazz, right? I mean, am I talking out of school here? Because there wasn't rock and roll really before these guys. So they got a lot of jazz influences and other rhythms mixed in. Okay.
Big time.
So if you take what they were doing back then, which was really kind of a lot more intricacy and a lot more to it, right? If you go fast forward now to like 90s and now drummers, are they more bang, bang, less intricacy because they are just hearing the loud stuff of these of like John Bonham of Led Zeppelin, or are these drummers today still as good? The question's not very good.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
I know where you're going. And I think people just learn their instruments differently. And it's not right or wrong. This could be, you know, I could be Gene Simmons here and I could say, well, you know, back when I learned my instrument, you know, I didn't learn on a drum set. I learned the rudiments and I played on a practice pad. Then I learned on a, on a snare drum forever, and I had to learn my rudiments. That's just the old school stuff. It's just like somebody on the piano learning scales. You know what I mean? You don't play an Elton John song out of the gate. You got to learn old school stuff on the piano. And I don't know that people learn that way anymore. So these guys had no choice. They all came from, like swing and jazz, and they
Right.
and those guys, they could play, man. And that's where they adapted, and that's where Ginger put another bass drum out there. Like, what is this? He was a madman. This guy brought in another bass drum.
Oh, he was
nuts.
What
are you doing with 2 bass drums? So I think people learn differently. Your son's learning instruments, and there's School of Rock now, and they just want them to jam with each other. Right. And I don't know if there's a lot of time to be learning some of this old technique-y stuff that's going to help you down the road. It really isn't like school. It isn't trigonometry. Okay. You're not going to use trigonometry, kids. I'm sorry if you're listening to this. No. That's the one thing you're not going to use. But if you learn that old school stuff, and if you really learn the picking techniques and the fingering and the old school, the rudiments on the drums, that stuff is going to serve you well later on. I don't know if they spend a lot of time on that stuff anymore.
The fingering?
Kids, it's good.
They're not.
Right after I said it, I'm like, here he goes.
Are we going to go back and talk about your van? Or are we talking about drums now and guitars? But no, it's funny because I had a buddy who's a very, very good drummer, but he plays all kinds. He grew up in the jazz world and in Latin world, and grew up in all these different genres, and he plays the drums like you play anything, right? Yep. So we were getting hammered one night, and I had the one of the Foo Fighters concerts on the big TV. The speakers are blaring, and we're just watching. I don't know if it was when they were playing in the O2 or whatever they were playing, right, from a few years back. So I just said, hey man, you're a drummer. What do you think of Taylor Hawkins, who I think, and I don't know shit about drums, I think he's awesome. He's fun to watch, and he's always beating the shit out of everything. His arms are always flying everywhere. And that's that's how I judge a drummer, apparently. He goes, for what he does a fine job. I go, what's that supposed to mean, man? He goes, well, he's in his world. He's, for what the Foo Fighters need him to do, he is great at that. But then you take him and you put him down on in the Mariner, you put him by Preservation Hall and all these old cats that can just play the shit out of the drums, different style. He wouldn't know what to do with himself. I'm like, wow, okay. I know we're getting off into a drum nerd world.
Taylor can play. Yeah. Taylor can play, man. He's a good drummer, and Dave's a great drummer.
Right.
What's got to be difficult, and I would love to sit down with Dave Grohl, and outside of whatever time I have for an interview, what I want to know is, dude, you write this song, you're a drummer. When you're writing this song, exactly, it just comes to you. When you play the drums and you're with a band, you just start tinkering what's going to work here. Okay, this would be fun to do here. This would be fun to do. When Dave's writing those songs, it's just automatically, organically happening in his brain. Taylor Hawkins has the unbelievable job to try to kind of match what's going on in Dave's head. Because the first drummer of the Foo Fighters, Dave did that whole album, but then he did get a drummer. Right. And that guy was not matching what was in Dave's head. Dave went in and re-recorded everything, offered the guy the gig to go out on the road. And the guy said, you re-recorded all my stuff. I don't want to do it. Right. Dave had to find somebody that could kind of read his mind. It was a similar guy, and Taylor Hawkins has a really tough job of being in a band with a great drummer that writes the songs. You don't intentionally write drum parts. They happen. They just happen. You know enough shit that it just, what's going to fit where. Dave has to have that in his head when he's writing those songs. And Taylor's got to come close to what's in Dave's head. Otherwise, there's going to be a problem. And he trusts Taylor enough, But I think Dave every now and then will say, I think maybe try this here. Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like, how the hell do you even, Dave's got to be real. I'm sure in the early days, Dave had to be very careful. Like, you don't want to, Dave's the boss. Okay. Obviously he's the boss. Yep. But if you start, day one, okay, well, no, I would hit this symbol here, not there. I would hit this, you know what I mean? He couldn't walk in and start that either, because then Taylor Hawkins was never going to feel free to open up. And I think I watched an interview a while back where Taylor's like, yeah, it took me a couple albums to kind of really get comfortable. A couple of albums. Yeah, because you have this great rock drummer that's not drumming in this band, and he's going to be judging everything that you're doing. Right. It was the right move to get in that band for sure. All right, let's do some final thoughts here. Let's wrap up this mess of a show. Jason, final thoughts today.
We talked about rock being dead and we talked about radio being dead. And I knew that, it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Actually, it was actually pretty positive because I think we're both believers that radio and rock music is still very, very much alive. But if you're a young guy or a girl in a band or in music or anything like that, or trying to get into radio, don't be discouraged by dopes like us and the old people. Don't be discouraged, right? Keep practicing. Practice. When you're done practicing, practice some more, right? Play gigs. As soon as you're allowed to start doing gigs, play everywhere. Play fairs, play your school, play wherever you're asked to play constantly. Read books, get life experiences, because I don't want your lyrics to suck, okay? I want your good lyrics with that good groove, all right? And here's my favorite piece of advice I've been given to bands for 20 years. I've been doing local radio or local music shows for years on radio stations, man. And don't ever call yourself a local band, ever. You're a band. You're not a local band. As soon as you strap local band on you, you might as well just pack it in. Call yourself your band name. That's it. You're never a local band. That's all I got. Final thought.
I like it.
Good luck.
Final thought for me. Something came out this week. Live Nation announced that they're doing something, and of all people, the Madden twins. Okay, Benji and Basenji and Joel Madden.
Joel and Benji.
I can't believe that these guys came up with this technology. They're putting in cameras and New Orleans House of Blues is on the list. Okay, right. So Live Nation has a deal with these guys, and they're putting cameras in all of these venues. And the reason why I think it's important is because there's going to be things that come out of this pandemic that aren't all necessarily shit. We've had to learn to do things differently, and there's going to be something that we adapt to. Some of you aren't going back to the office. Some of you aren't driving into the office as much as you were. Some of you are still, working at your kitchen table, and some of you are going to be continuing to do that. Some people like it. Some people want to get back in the office. I don't know what the movie theater experience is going to be like moving forward. I don't know if they can take that away from us by charging us $25-$30 for a movie and sitting on your couch and not going anywhere and watching a first run movie. I don't know that the movie industry is ever going to be the same. A live concert industry, it's going to be booming when it hits. People want to go. Mm-hmm. And of course, financially, people have been hit. But one of the things that they're going to offer is a chance to stream the band and watch the concert. Say, okay, I'm here in Houston, but there's a show happening, and there's a show happening at the House of Blues in New Orleans. And I can go online for $10 and I can go watch that show. That's awesome.
In real time.
In real time, you watch it live. And it's not necessarily just the cameras on the stage. There might be a backstage experience. There might be all sorts of things beforehand and what the band's doing and what they're talking about beforehand. They haven't told us exactly what they're going to do with this technology, but I think it's going to be huge. I really do. This is one of those things where it's like, no, it's not worse. It's better. This is better. Will they black out local shows? Jason and I grew up in Buffalo. Bills games are not selling out. Guess what? We had to go to some pizza place in Niagara Falls to go watch a game that had a satellite dish because it was locally blacked out. Right. Now, apparently that happened here with the Oilers. I'm sure it happened with the Saints back in the day.
For years, yeah.
Okay, but people don't realize that. Games didn't sell out. I wonder if they use that same principle. If your show doesn't sell out, you cannot get the show. Woodlands Pavilion here in Houston.
Locally.
It's not sold out. You can't get it here. You've got to buy a ticket if you want to go see it. But we were talking about it on the air. Not everybody has the money to go to Red Rocks. It's a religious experience, and I implore everybody to go see a live band in Red Rocks. Doesn't matter if it's your favorite band. Go see a band in Red Rocks. But if you can never have that experience, but they turn on the cameras, and now you're watching, Nathaniel Rateliff at Red Rocks. I'm paying $10-15 for that. I'm paying $20 for that on a Friday night to watch that. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do with this camera technology, but they're putting the cameras in now. And I think it's pretty awesome. I really do. I don't think it hurts the concert industry. I think it enhances it. I do.
It totally does.
And it's another stream of money for the bands. Bands aren't rock bands. We talked about aren't selling albums. They're not, they're making their money by playing live. They're making money by letting people come backstage and meet them and take a picture with them. They're getting money from you. They're getting money for these fan experiences. Okay. It's another way for bands to make money, which is great. It's a great stream of revenue. I think they could make a lot of money doing this. And I think it just opens up, the live experience. Nothing's going to replace seeing a band live, but Weezer is doing their first ever live stream Friday night. They're going to play their new album and people are buying it, because of this pandemic. It never would have happened. I don't know that it would have happened, but it wouldn't have happened yet had we not been through what we went through this past year. So these cameras are going in, and I think there's a world of opportunity here. I really do. I think it's a good thing. I'm excited about it.
I think it's very cool because, some artists have been doing it. It's not the same experience, but they've been using like Patreon pages and stuff like that, where they'll say, hey, look, on Saturday night, 8 p.m., local time, I'm going to come on, I'm going to do an hour. Okay. And then for a week ahead of time, hey, what songs do you want me to play? Yeah. And it's usually a dude with a guitar. So it's like, it's a very different sort of experience. And if you're a super fan of those bands, that's where it's really going to be neat, right? Cause a lot of bands skip New Orleans. They go right from Houston because it's a bigger market. They could drive right down the I-10. They blow right by here. They go to Atlanta or Tampa or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I would be able to actually sit down and go, well, shit, man. The Goo Goo Dolls haven't played here in 10 years. I would like to see them live. Hey, they're playing in Houston. Maybe Rod's there. Maybe they're going to kind of go out and find guys like you or me and go, hey, you do the 5-minute pre-interview with the band, and then, all right, introduce them, and then bam, here they are.
I didn't even think about that. That would be an awesome opportunity, to get grab the local dummy from the radio station and have him do something.
Or the two guys from the Play Pants podcast. We got to talk to some people. Where's Joel and Benji Madden? They should be contacted by our producer, Jake Fisher. Get on that, Jake. Come on. Call up Joel and those Good Charlotte guys. Maybe you should start playing some more Good Charlotte on the air, dude.
Maybe so.
But I like it. I think that's cool. You know what? The live experience, there's nothing like the live experience, though, to be in there, the smell, the feel, the sweat, and then that energy you get. But think about like Jazz Fest do that. Holy shit. Eventually. I think it'll expand past these 60 cities or whatever it's going to be, or 60 venues.
For sure it will.
That would be so cool.
I would, for years, I've traditionally only been coming in, Jazz Fest is 2 weekends in New Orleans, and I just can't do both weekends. I just can't.
Right.
I would 100% buy a Jazz Fest live stream on the weekend that I don't go. Of course I would. And I'd pay good money for that.
Think about this, man. There's a band, and you know how you and your buddies, y'all like certain bands. We all, you gravitate towards certain music, and you're always talking about it. Think about it, man. If somebody's playing, somewhere else, and it's a Saturday night, and you've got the outdoor TV up, or you pause, nowadays TVs are cheap as shit. And everyone's got the great sound systems. Have the boys over, drink some beers, and holy shit, you're watching a concert from your damn couch or playing cornhole in your backyard. Meanwhile, this band's playing. That would be a whole different experience. It would be pretty badass too.
It could get to a point where you go to your guide and, right now you've got all of those channels. You got a couple thousand, the schedule there. It's going to be bands on demand. Oh, what's it tonight? Okay, Papa Roach, boom. Who cares if it's happening right now? All that stuff's going to be available. They're filming everything now. So this is the start of something that I think is going to be absolutely huge. I really do.
I guess the devil's advocate, though, would be like, well, why don't you just go buy one of the old DVDs and put it on? It's just not the same, though, because they got the new songs and they got the new rap. Look, I don't ever want to see Kiss do this. And they're going to be the first ones to do it because they want to make the money. But you can go watch a video from 1978 and they're saying the same shit. Paul's up there, all right, Cleveland, same shtick every night. So that might not be the band you want to do this. Right. Not to piss on Kiss, but you get the idea.
So that's a hell of a final thought. But I was that just kind of came out the other day, and man, I ran with that. I thought that was awesome news. I thought that was totally cool.
I think, you know what? I think the biggest part of that is the fact that I can only name maybe one or two Good Charlotte songs. So Joel and Benji Madden, and isn't one of them married to like Cameron Diaz?
Lifestyles of the rich and the famous.
Yes. So just, dude, you don't have to be like awesome. You can go into other worlds. Like, you got two radio DJs, right? Who are pretty good at what they do. But no, now they're doing podcasts. This is going to blow up, dude. This could be huge.
Play Pants with Rod and Jason. We can use their song. We'll make a song. One's married to Lionel Richie's kid, and the other one's married to Cameron Diaz. So they're doing okay. They manage bands, and this is their technology that they're doing, and they cut an exclusive deal. I can't imagine the money, the cameras, the everything with Live Nation, the biggest producer of live concerts.
Right.
I'm pretty sure those guys are pretty loaded. I can't even imagine what a deal like this would be worth.
But you know what? Thinking about this, you're right. Going back to your point about like this probably wouldn't have happened without the pandemic, right?
Not as soon. I think it would have eventually happened at some point, but I don't think we would have it. I don't think we'd be talking about it right now.
Think of the money that Live Nation and all these promoters and even your local venues, your local bars put music in, they have lost so much money in the last year, like billions of dollars. There's going to be a lot of festivals probably that aren't going to come back because Live Nation and these other promoters are going to have to cut. They're not going to be able to do everything they did before. They just can't. The money's not there. They've had to lay off people. They've had to change their whole business model. So it's all about those streams. You can't have just one stream of revenue. They're looking for other ways to get that money train.
Correct.
Rolling.
And this is a ton of jobs too. I mean, these cameras, working the cameras, doing all this. I mean, the rigging, all of that. There's jobs being created with this as well. So the concert industry absolutely needs it.
I think it's going to be great.
One final thought. Just what do you know about Jazz Fest for October? I mean, do you still think that it's happening?
They came out 2 weeks ago, maybe it was, and they confirmed it was going to be at the fairgrounds where that's the old horse racetrack in New Orleans. They've been doing it there for 45 some odd years, right? And they've confirmed it's going to be there because they moved it from the last weekend in April and the first weekend in May to 2 weekends in October, right? So that's going to give everyone time to get their shots or whatever's going to happen the next few months.
Okay.
But it leaves you with a problem because if you've noticed, there's not been a whole lot of people announcing grand tours just yet. I think everyone's still in that wait and see mode.
You can't do tours. You can't do you can't go and do a Swiss cheese thing and a band play here. Well, okay, New York's not ready. They're a little bit more conservative. Okay, Texas, boom. Okay, let's hit San Antonio, Dallas, and Austin and Houston. Great. But you've got to route and make money and everything. So the tours, they're not going to happen. Right. They're not. I don't think they're going to happen. Although Hella Mega Tour is still, they say they're playing. So I think Hella Mega thinks they're doing it, and I think Tommy Lee thinks that they're doing it. The
Motley Crue thing with the
Motley Crue. Yeah. So they think they're doing it. I don't know, but Jazz Fest is a one-off deal. It's Bonnaroo. It's not a tour.
Bonnaroo's announced, Foo Fighters, and there's that lineup's out. Bonnaroo is out. So I think they might just be waiting for another minute or so to kind of go, okay, well, everyone's trying to gauge where are we going to be in October? It's the whole, hey, we're
ready to fucking rock. Okay. I'll tell you where I'm going to be. I got my shots. I feel like a fucking champion. I want to rock out. That's where I'm at. Call Joe Jazz Fest and tell them,
dude, get on eBay right now, get a van. Okay. I want the family in that van humming in all the way down the I-10 to New Orleans. And you're sleeping
I'm going to be there. I don't know what weekend. I will be there.
All
you
of
just got to let me know. So dude, we don't have an announcement date yet, is what you're telling me.
No, the dates are out there. There's just not one band.
A band. And we don't have any lineup. We don't have anything yet.
Nothing at all, man. So, dude, you should come in for the entire month of October, okay? Bring your shit with you. Do your radio show from here. We can podcast every time, all week long. This is going to be great. Just cruise over for October. Everybody, come on to New Orleans in October. It's going to be ridiculous over here.
Is Voodoo going to happen?
That's the big mystery.
Voodoo is traditionally the big show in New Orleans in October, and it's Halloween weekend.
Halloween weekend.
How the hell are you going to jam that and 2 weekends of Jazz Fest.
We're all going to age like 90 years in a month is what's going to happen. No one's going to sleep in October because we're cramming all a bunch of other festivals that normally would have happened. French Quarter Fest is a big one. That's going to be in October. You know, they're going to push everything. October's going to be the sleepless month in New Orleans. And there's going to be, what's 9 months after October? Whatever month that is, the hospitals are going to have to bring in people.
Right.
Because it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild down here in October, man. It's going to be nuts. I can't wait.
All right, guys, thanks so much for checking us out again. We've talked about all the social media. You guys are doing a great job. Hit us up at PlayPantsPod. If you're listening to us on one of the platforms that you listen to your podcast on, you can check out the video to see if I stole this line from Jason years ago, to see if we look as stupid as we sound.